Hey guys, how's it going? We are going to be planting one plant today. Just one. Well, that's a lie. We're starting the video off strong. We're going to be planting two plants, but they're the exact same plant today. And I am so excited for this plant. This is a plant that I technically can't grow, but I'm hoping I should be able to grow. So we're going to push this plant to its limits by growing it in my growing zone. This is the By Me Clematis by Proven Winners. We're going to be planting this plant, and I am so excited about it. This is something that I've wanted to grow for probably about 2 years now, maybe three. Pretty much the last couple years, like I've been like, how am I going to get my hands on this plant? Because I know no garden center near me is going to carry this plant. It is in zones 3 through 7. I am a growing zone 9A. And so that is a huge difference. From a 7 to a 9, that's a big jump, and that's a lot of stress to put on a plant. So I'm hoping that I should be able to grow it because there's a few plants that I know that are zone 7 that I can grow. California is pretty much all deemed a zone 9 and 10. But California also follows this thing called the sunset growing zone, which basically breaks down California into a bunch of microclimates. And California microclimate, I am a zone, I think it's an 8. And meaning that we have a little bit different weather than most of California. Like I think Janie is like a higher zone. Like I think she's like a 12 or a 14 or something like that. I can't quite remember. So I know that my weather is much different than a lot of other people's in California. We get extreme heat, and then usually we get cold. We don't get freezing, but we do get cold. And we usually do get hit with like a small like hailstorm, and it'll be like 29 to 30 degrees usually. And that happens one day. So I'm hoping that me thinking about my sunset zone that I should be able to grow this plant. We'll see. It's a test. I got these plants for free, and so I feel a little guilty about it, but I don't feel too bad because they were just gonna go in the garbage anyway. So this is kind of a we'll see what happens. Hope you make it. Anyways, this plant is just a gorgeous clematis. It is one that we're going to cut back to the ground every single fall, late fall, maybe early winter. We'll cut it back once it's completely done blooming and everything, and once it has died back from a frost. So it's a cool plant. Let me turn the camera on and show you guys. The ones that I have are extremely tiny. They're not blooming, they're not fleshed out, and they're not big. They're not huge in bags. So I'm going to pop a couple pictures up. One here, and here, and here. So that way you guys can see what that plant looks like when it is looking glorious. So let me show you guys the ones that I have, and we'll go over the rest of the specs. So here are the two clematis. I've tried to wait as long as possible so that way I could show you guys. It has all these buds that are forming up on it, and even has a bloom coming. And you can see, look at these leaves right here, started to turn the blue color just on the tips, which I thought was so interesting to be able to see that, to see like these plants were coming. I've got two of them right here. This is the By Me Clematis, and it is going to be so gorgeous when I get these in the ground. They do die back to the ground every single year, like I said, and then you just cut them back. Here is the plant tag, so you can see how cool the blooms and the seed heads are on this. Really excited about this plant. It is growing zones 3 through 7. I think I said 4 through 7, but the plant tag says 3 through 7. And then it is one that you plant in full to part sun, like you do with most clematis, but you need to make sure that the roots stay nice and cool. So you usually plant the roots kind of behind a plant, so that way the roots don't scorch, so like you'd plant something, you know, right in front of it. I'm gonna try two different things just because it doesn't grow in my growing zone. So I'm gonna plant one in one spot and one in another spot just to see kind of what happens and see if there is a better area for this plant. One will have more protection, one will be a little bit more sunny. And then this is something that does need support. So it grows, it's a bush type clematis, but it gets tall. And so it's not gonna vine like your normal clematis would like climb up things like this honeysuckle. So you need to give it support. And so what you normally would do is you would go with some type of wire cage or something like that. I'm so late in the season that that's not really gonna matter. I don't need to do that this year. But next year, before these start to break dormancy, what I'll do is I'll go in with like a peony cage and I'll pop something around it. So that way as they grow up, because they're gonna get super top heavy, they don't flop or anything like that. So this is a plant that probably is gonna need a good amount of support throughout the year, just to be mindful of that. But it should bloom early spring, all the way through a frost. So this is something that's supposed to just bloom and bloom and bloom. And I've actually watched this thing grow in its containers. All of these leaves here, they were all shut when I got this. And then it opened up and all of these buds popped out and formed, and both plants are doing it. So I'm so excited about this. So let me show you guys where they're gonna go. One of them is actually just gonna go right around the corner right here. So we are at the bird bath bed right here, and I have this hydrangea that I think I'm gonna need to move this fall time or something like that, and I'm going to move it all the way up against the house. So it's gonna go right kind of where that dead astilbe is at. I'm gonna cut this thing back hard, and then I'm gonna move it back. And then I think that I want the bush clematis to kind of go where the hydrangea is almost. So I'm thinking that I'm gonna plant it really close to this hydrangea because I know the hydrangea is gonna move. So I have about 2 feet. I want it to kind of be close to the edge here. So that's kind of my thought, is I'll plant it here. I might actually go into this hole around these sedums, plant it here, and then this'll, that's what we're gonna have to do, is we're gonna plant it in that hole. That hole will be way better. And then I can move this back, and then I'll have enough room to plant something else behind it that can handle both. So clematis is gonna go there. I was thinking there, I don't know why I thought there, but we're gonna go right there in that hole. And then this one is gonna go on the other side of the property over by the lion fountain. I think that that might be a really good area for it. I just cleared out a huge section of plants over there. And so I'm thinking that in that area that I cleared out all these plants, I need something that can handle hot afternoon sun, but also can handle some shade. And this might be perfect for that area. So let's go over there and I'll show you guys what that area looks like. This is the weird bed. I've had such a hard time in this garden bed figuring out what works, what doesn't work. I just planted some hostas because like I know part of this bed is shade. So I just planted that one back there. And then I have some lungwort here that deflates every day because it just doesn't get enough water. And then I've got this hosta here that is getting burned on the side, but I think it's more because of the lion fountain right here. And then I do want to say the water is clear. It's just dark. So you can see all the way to the bottom. And I get questions about that all the time. And it's because I have these copper tubings inside, and that has totally helped with like the algae in here. One of you guys recommended that, so thank you to whoever recommended that. And this lion fountain I did find locally, and I don't have a source for it. I get asked every time, and I'm so sorry. But this is where we're going to be planting the other clematis. And it's a perfect spot for it. I'm thinking we're gonna go right there. Something like that. So that should fill this entire area in, be nice and tall, big, gorgeous. I do need to run some irrigation to that clematis, but we ran out of some of our irrigation supplies, so I'm gonna have to go get some more. But this section here is weird because it is like partial sun, but partial shade. The back half to where that tree stump is, right there, is definitely all shade. But from like here over gets like dappled sun. This bed confuses me. I don't know what to do about it. So this is what we're gonna do, is we're gonna plant this clematis here and try it out. And maybe it's a really good area for clematis. And then I can find some low ground cover type things to go here. We'll see. I'm gonna plant it there. So let's go ahead and get those planted now, because I think that I just blinded you guys. Let's go ahead and get those planted now, because I think that these should survive for us, because I'm trying to be super selective about where they go and not planting them in my full sun, because we do get like 115 here, and I think that that might be a little too much. So it says full sun, so if you're in those lower zones, definitely plant that thing in full sun. I am not in a lower zone. I wish that I was in the lower zone and I plant like I'm in the lower zone, but I'm not, so let's go. And one last thing before we get to planting, I am going to go in with a fertilizer. Clematis are pretty heavy feeders, so I want to make sure that I'm feeding. I'll probably be feeding this thing again in the springtime, because now it's getting into the fall time. And so a feeding in the spring and a feeding in the fall will do your clematis wonders. So that is the plan. Healthy handful of fertilizer. She is positively glowing in that area. I don't know if it's the sun, but she's literally looks like she's glowing in this area. It's gorgeous. I think she was meant to be right there, exactly where I planted her. You probably noticed that I did go in and I added just a little extra irrigation to that. So I went through and I added a 1 gallon per hour emitter, which is one of these guys right here. And then I did come in with some of my black 1/4 inch drip tubing right here, and I just popped it in there with a straight coupler like this. So that's all I do if my irrigation is too far from my plants. I just go in with a straight coupler to a little bit of the black tubing to the emitter right at the very end, and make sure my plants all have just enough water. And then the other one is tucked in right there, and eventually that should fill this entire space out, which will be kind of nice, especially once that hydrangea is moved backwards a bit. You can see, obviously, this section here was getting too much sun for the hydrangea. The back half rarely scorches, it's just this front half. So this will fill this entire area in, and it's gonna be just perfect right there. I didn't go in with any extra irrigation on this one because the ground was pretty wet far down. So I knew that there was plenty enough water in this area. So I think that that's going to be it for this video, you guys. Thank you guys for coming along with me to plant a plant that I've wanted to get in my garden for a while. I hope that you guys learned about a new plant in your garden, and fingers crossed for me, please, that this thing survives at least one of them. Because if I can get one, if I can get a couple years out of it, just one of them, I will be more than thrilled. So thanks for visiting our garden, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.